Dear sir, this is the most difficult letter I've ever had to write. However, I must be true to the dictates of my own conscience. When I decided to become a Marine at 34 years of age, I was an easy sell. The young Marine who greeted me insisted on going through the sales pitch anyway, so I consented to oblige. I was disappointed when he showed me a list of common reasons for wanting to join the Marine Corps and found that the list did not include many of the reasons I had for joining. Here are the reasons I gave. They're more important to me today than when I first walked into that office. Number one, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Number two, to defend defenseless people. Number three, to promote and preserve peace on earth. Number four, love of country. There are others, but those are the ones that, when the going got tough in boot camp or later on in Iraq, I'd remind myself of and continue on. It may sound idealistic and naively patriotic to some, but I was raised in a time and place, Alabama in the 60s and 70s, when the pursuit of liberty and justice for all was everywhere present and apparent. Plus, I was blessed to be raised by parents who taught me the importance of standing up for what you believe in, and that the love of God and country are essential. I do love my country, more than I can say, more than I will say. It breaks my heart to know that to be true to the reasons I joined the Marine Corps in the first place, I must now leave the military. I'm a homosexual. Don't ask, don't tell. Simply doesn't work for me anymore.
Yes, yeah, that's nice.
Yes?
Yes. Okay.
Got it.
Ready? Let's go.
The contrition of a hungry child is something I do not want or need. Tomorrow night at 8 o'clock is probably the most important show I've ever done. You know, my parents will be together here and watching it. My brother and his fiance will be here. This will be the first time Dad's seen it. I'm not down here to change their politics or change their religion or any of that, but when I leave this town, they'll know that you don't have to be a Republican to be patriotic, and you don't have to be a Baptist to love God.
Jeff?
Yes.
We are at half hour, please, sir.
Thank you, half hour. Hello?
Are you watching TV?
No, Mom, I'm sleeping.
Maybe you should be.
Are we going to war?
You may be, sweetheart.
I'll call you back. 11 September 2001. It was my mom who called to tell me about the terrorist attacks from the classroom where she taught social science to 8th graders back home in Alabama. You know, your mom's voice does something to you that no other sound on earth can do. I know that woman so well. I could tell just by the way she ignored my initial irritation that there was something big going on. And in the exchange of just a few syllables, I could feel her concern for me, her baby. And at the same time, her checking to make sure that I, the Marine, would protect her.
I've always been proud of Jeff. I've always been proud of Jeff. I was only 19 when he was born, and so we did a lot of things together. He uses the phrase, we grew up together.
Jeff came along in our life and was a great blessing. I just told I was overjoyed with the little rascal, which always pleased me, and he was such a delight, and he was just an amazing young boy. I even prayed to God, and this was a selfish prayer, and maybe I shouldn't, But, I asked God to bless us with a little preacher. And I remember calling the radio station in Jasper, WWWB, and telling them we had a little preacher born last night.
I grew up, wasn't really much of a town. It was kind of a stop on the railroad tracks, called, if you can believe it, America Junction. And we never locked our doors. Everybody sort of looked out after each other's kids, and my family was there on the hill with us. My grandmother was on one side, my uncle and his wife and sons were on the other side. It was a great place to grow up, really. There's a little church called Hat Church of Christ where we went. I really loved going there. I liked the way the church smelled when you walked in, and so many people there were people who I loved and were great people.
So this was the old church right here. You see how this section, it looks like an old church. My parents were married right inside there. And each one of those classrooms, right there, that middle one's where I taught. I was a teenager and I taught the 2- and 3-year-olds. So this is the house where I grew up. And that was my bedroom on the front. That's the porch swing where Mama and I would sit for every thunderstorm.
When I was a little kid, one of the things I'd do when I was out playing was I would take the hymnal and the Bible and the woods behind our house. I'd go out and sing from the hymnal and preach.
I think about it as the place where I first had the conscious contact with God. When I was in Iraq or wherever I go, I just picture myself walking that little hill right there. And know I'm gonna be all right.
Nothing was more important than service to God, but it was running a close second about how very important it is to be part of the best nation on earth and what we have here and what responsibility goes with that. And we would never put a bite of food in our mouth before praying over it. And when Dad did, that's what they would, they would say, for those fighting on foreign soil.
When I was in the Cub Scouts and I carried the flag, it was right down this street, man. They would, the people would just line these streets.
I was the den mother for the Cub Scouts. We had the Cub Scout flag to carry and then the United States flag. And of course, being the mother, I really wanted Jeff to carry it, but I wasn't gonna be unfair to any of the others. So I put all their names in a coffee can, shook them up, and pulled it out, and Jeff was the one that I drew.
Man, I was so proud to carry that flag down the streets in Paris.
Scripturally, from the Bible, loyalty to country is a part of revelation. And so in the South, people take, their faith and their loyalty to their country very seriously.
Parrish was the kind of place to grow up. It was, a small town, in school with the same 40 or 50 kids all the way through from first grade to 12th grade, and everybody knew everybody. Jeff caught a lot of criticism from people in school that, called him names, called him sissy, called him different things because he was more creative and, he didn't exactly fit the mold that there was no football, no sports. And us being in the band, that was a big, for us, it was, brought in question of your, people thought, wasn't always thought so highly of as being like the masculine thing to be in the band. When church is such an issue and God loving you is such an issue for you growing up, when all that your whole life is a conflict, it's a very big thing. It's a great burden. I knew that there was something different about me. And I don't know, just from growing up around Jeff and wondering if any of that sensitivity might be a clue of any kind of sought him out. And I came out to him one time sitting out by his pool. And that's how we came to know that each of us was gay.
That's the field house there. And when I was still, I was like 10 years old. And I caught a glimpse of this guy who was like butt naked, about to get in the shower.
and my heart nearly stopped. I thought he was so beautiful. And I knew, you know, that wasn't the way that it was supposed to be. I wasn't supposed to, you know, think that was as cool as I did. I guess on some level I was trying to beat it down. As an early teenager, you know, it was so horrifying to me that I might be that thing that everybody so clearly hates that I prayed to God, please don't let this be, you know, if, you know, take this from me and make me into, you know, somebody who likes girls in the way I'm supposed to like them. And, you know, I might as well have been, you know, a black person praying to be white.
He came from school, and he came in, and his dad and he and I were sitting in the living room, and he just said, "I'm gay." And for what I remember, we both just kind of looked at him and said, well, he had put in words what we thought.
I think I'd probably read some How to Tell Your Parents You're a Fag little flyer, and I sat between them and held their hands and said, you know, there's something that you need to know about your son, and I told them.
I haven't understood that, still don't. They still major in my mind. There's something apparently that's there, and I'm trying to pick up from TV and books and all about that situation, and I have some strong convictions about it. Really, I think that it's the man-woman relationship is the way God intended for it to be. And if God intended for it to be that way, it ought to be that way.
When I learned that Jeff became gay, or at least Jeff openly talked about being gay, it concerned me to the extent that then I felt that it was wrong, that that lifestyle is, you know, contrary to what God teaches, and in my view, it puts his soul in jeopardy. And because I love Jeff, I'm concerned about that, and I pray about that for him.
Night with ebon pinion brooded o'er the vale. All around was silent, save the night winds well. Those songs are seared in my mind forever. When Christ, the man of sorrows, with tears and sweat as blood, prostrate in the garden, raised his voice to God. I got my degree in theater, and I came to California, came to Hollywood to be with the other freaks. Me and this boy from Mississippi, Sonny, ended up in a little guest house in North Hollywood, and we actually chose it because there were goats and chickens in the yard. You know, it kind of, I guess, was a little homey.
When he said he was going to California, that just seemed the natural step, you know, the next step in his life. That's where he should be.
It was the dream he had had most all of his life, and I thought it was time for him to try, and I was all for it.
Being gay in a place like Los Angeles is obviously different than it was in Alabama. People are celebrated here for things that we're ridiculed for back in the normal real world.
Jeff rolled into town, and he came straight to brunch, and the guy that he was going to be living with was sitting next to me, and Jeff popped into the restaurant, just literally like blew in and popped in, and he sat down right in front of me across the table, and that's how I met him. And he was just so full of light and energy, and he was so skinny. He was so thin and happy, and he was like a boy.
This guy tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, and there was Jeff. You know, so I'm like looking up at him, and he said, you don't know this, but you're gonna be in my life. I want you in my life, or something like that. And I was like, sure. He had beautiful blue eyes. I love that accent. He was intriguing. He reminded me of some of the people that I'd known when I was growing up. The kind of person to call him and say, I'm coming to pick you up, we're going to the beach at 9 o'clock at night. And I love that.
My life was about sort of reclaiming the things that I had not pursued or for whatever reasons had felt fear about doing. One of the things that I had wanted to do was to serve in the military. It was something very noble to me. Probably being gay had something to do with it. You know, maybe it's going to make me into this man that I'm supposed to be. I called them. I said, "What's the age cutoff?" And they said, 28. And I was like, ugh. He goes, "Why? How old are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm 34. He said, "Well, come in anyway." I had to write this letter. I walked in there with the intention I was going to Marine Corps boot camp if I had to, you know, make up a new birth certificate and become 26 again.
Now, that did surprise me. If it had happened 10 years before, it wouldn't. But at the point in his life where he was, and then I took a step back and I thought, well, yeah, because Jeff has always done the unexpected.
I started telling my friends, and I mean, different ones reacted in different ways. You know, Orlando comes to mind.
There's so many political thoughts that I have about that, about, you know, if they don't want us, hey, screw them. We don't have to go. Great, one benefit, you know? And, you know, I just thought, why?
He needed to explain it to me, and I finally said, "Jeff, I'm not so much worried about an enemy from a foreign shore. I'm worried about the guy in the next rack who's going to figure out that you're gay and catch you alone and bash your head in, because it's an issue." And he said, "Well, you know, I think I can take care of myself. I don't think it's that big a deal."
The recruiters had told me that, you know, because you're an old fuck and because you're tall, they were probably going to try to make you the guide, but nobody gets to be the guide all the way through. So if you get fired, don't let it get next to you. I was determined I was not going to get fired. I wanted to be the guide. And so when we got through receiving and we were sent to our platoon that we would go through boot camp with, they put me up front and I was the guide. For the first time in a really long time, for all the hell it is, there wasn't an iota of me that was depressed in any way.
I think he was about 32, 33. And when he told me, I was like, "Man, what are you doing? Why did you join the military now, man? Something you should have done 10 years ago." And he said something that has always stuck with me. I mean, in like other aspects of my life, I've remembered what he said. And he said, "You know, it's never too late to do the right thing." That was a very powerful statement. I was like, yeah, that's heavy.
He was an awesome Marine because the ideals of what the Marine Corps has taught us, he held true, and he would always look out for us. It was just like Big Brother, making sure we're all dressed up right. And he would be like, "Look at you, Marine. Let me square you away for a moment." And he would like put us up in attention, and he'd like check us out, and he'd look around and be like, "Okay, you're good to go."
Platoon, 10.
Boot camp ends with the Crucible, which is about a 3-day intensive of the things that you've learned up to that point. You go, you know, without sleep and little food. I mean, you're real tired and hungry at the end of it. But you go up this mountain they call the Grim Reaper, and you're at the top, and they play Proud to Be an American, do a flyover, and the drill instructor comes with a cigar box of Eagle Globe and Anchors, the symbol of being a Marine. You know, it's not on any of our uniform or anything before. He shook my hand. He said, "Congratulations, Marines." First time I'd ever been called Marine. And man, it's a great moment that, you know, only a few proud people know what that feels like. And I mean, it was one of the very, very best moments of my life, because instead of taking it out of the box, he took it off of his campaign cover and he gave me his Eagle Globe and Anchor. Somewhere when I'm 8 years old, I missed the baseball, and it on some level registered, oh my God, I did that because I'm a little sissy. And when I became a Marine, I got what I had wanted. You know, I mean, I got what I wanted. I got to be in the biggest, baddest boys club in the world.
Jeff in the Marine Corps ended up being the person that I thought that he would be.
Oh, I was so proud. I went by myself to his Marine Corps graduation. He carried the flag that day. He carried the flag. I remember that. Although the flag that was on the staff, the United States flag was at half staff because that's when the USS Cole had been attacked. And that was something to think about too, because it was what are our children facing now?
All of a sudden, it just went like those little Matchbox toys when you're a little kid. It just went, and the smoke went up.
We heard like a crack, and then the building just slid off diagonally.
Coming from the World Trade Center, it was just like chaos. You saw people just pouring down the street, and obviously a lot of sirens and ambulances going the other direction.
Am I going to war?
You may be, sweetheart. 9/11 was a school day. I had gone to the teacher's workroom to kind of get caught up on some things, and in passing by the office, I noticed that the secretary and some others were kind of gathered around the TV monitor in there. And they were showing the video of the planes hitting the towers. I just took a few deep breaths and I walked down the hall. But I thought, I've got to talk to Jeff first.
I really thought about America as a place that most people around the world really loved. You know, I felt like I was part of this beloved nation. And to see that somebody hated us that much was, I mean, it was shocking to me. I must have sat there for hours, transfixed by the TV, paralyzed by what emotion I'm not really sure. As I watched the nation I'm sworn to defend under attack, I knew that the events that were unfolding in front of me were going to affect me in a big way, and that my life, just as the lives of millions of others, was changed forever. I knew I had to do something. I just didn't know at the time what I'd be doing. So until I got that call that I knew to expect, all I could do was wait. I went to New York, and I wore my dress blues to the site because I wanted to be respectful. And I walked into this sea of, like, they're all, dirty from working on the site. And they looked, whipped around and looked at, what's this Marine doing in here? But a lot of them came over to me, a lot of them who were Marines who went on to be cops and firemen, and they pumped my hand, and told me what unit they were with or whatever. Said, hey, you're gonna do something about this, right? And then they took me onto the site. And I knew I was gonna be part of whatever it was that we were gonna do to make sure something like that was not gonna happen again. Over the next several months, I prepared myself for the inevitable, all the while getting angrier and angrier at what had happened to my beloved country. My thoughts were almost continuously on my loved ones, my friends in LA who are like family to me, a real family back home in Alabama. Came to believe that somebody was out to hurt them. Can't really tell you what that did to me. So I ate good, worked out harder, smoked more. I bought all these books on the Taliban, Islamic fundamentalism. Know your enemy, they always say. And then the strangest thing happened. One night, while I was asleep, somebody switched the enemy.
Before September the 11th, many in the world believed that Saddam Hussein could be contained. But chemical agents, lethal viruses, and shadowy terrorist networks are not easily contained. Imagine those 19 hijackers with other weapons and other plans, this time armed by Saddam Hussein. Take one vial, one canister, one crate, slipped into this country to bring a day of horror like none we have ever known. We will do everything in our power to make sure that that day never comes.
You stopped hearing about Osama bin Laden. You stopped hearing about the Al-Qaeda. And the more and more, you would hear
September 11th, and Saddam Hussein in the same sentence over and over.
Saddam Hussein is very much focused on putting in place the key missing piece from his nuclear weapons program, the ability to produce fissile material.
Colin Powell going in front of the UN was a turning point for me. After that day, I was like, you know, okay, so maybe Saddam Hussein did not send the pilots, but clearly he's part of this whole kind of evil group that hates us so much that September 11th happened. So it's kind of all the same thing, really, when you think about it.
I want you to know that the mission you are on is vital to achieving peace and to protecting America. One of my most solemn duties, a duty that you have joined me on, is to protect the American people.
It looked like my unit, 4th LAR, was headed to Iraq. There was no way in hell I was going to let my buddies go into some shit without me being there doing my best to try to help protect them. So, suffice it to say that between all the rationalizations I gave myself and everything I heard on Fox News, by the time Oscar night rolled around and Michael Moore took the stage, all I saw was some fat guy screaming that I was going to a fictitious war. I was packed for Iraq, praying for fictitious bullets. In different ways and on different levels, I had felt like the abused, weak, powerless, defenseless person. And now was this opportunity to go and just kick the shit out of somebody who was being mean to innocent people.
AIDS happened in my lifetime. I have buried a lot of beautiful young men before, you know, what I would consider their time. To suddenly have to face war on top of AIDS, and here's a friend of mine who is healthy and young and vibrant, who's choosing to put himself in harm's way for something that he believes in, was really hard for me to swallow.
There's a feeling of powerlessness when your friends are doing something that you think is the wrong choice for them, and you can't stop them and you can't change it. And that's what I was really angry about.
I was proud of him, you know, for what he was doing, because there's so many millions, you know, over here, you know, just going about their own business and their daily lives, and then you've got the select few that are over there actually putting their lives on the line.
When I actually got the call that said, hey, we're gonna get deployed, I had a flashback, an instant flashback to a moment in boot camp. This one moment where our drill instructor took his cover off his hat and like wiped his face and gave us a look and said, you know, I never thought I'd go to war. And I was just like, I knew what he was feeling when he told us that, because I never thought I'd go to war.
One thing I want you to keep in mind is right now in Iraq and all over the Middle East, there are young men out there about our same age that are preparing for a war too. And
our parents all knew where they were when Kennedy was assassinated. I'll remember where I was when I learned about what happened during 9/11. And I will always remember, you know, the days leading up to somebody that I had come to know and love, you know, was going off to war. I remember when we went to his going away party. We had a dinner party for him, and I didn't want to go. I just didn't want to go. You know, and when I walked in the restaurant, and there he was in his uniform, you know, he looked beautiful. He looked like the epitome of a Marine. But I had absolutely no desire to walk through the door of the restaurant, because I didn't want to say goodbye. So I didn't know if it was, going to be goodbye.
When you hold Jeff, every part of your body touches him. And every part of your soul touches him. And I just remember standing in his living room, and holding him, and not wanting to let go.
One of the hardest things that's ever happened to me in my life is when my son handed me his will and his power of attorney. That was hard.
So I hope I live. I probably will. Too mean to die.
You will.
I'll live.
I'll make sure of it.
Get that on tape. Make sure.
I'll make sure it comes home.
That's a guarantee right there from Vaughn.
We landed in Kuwait, got out. Immediately, a rush of hot, humid air came in. It immediately caught my senses, and I was like, wow, we're in it. You know, next thing you know, we're gonna pass the line, and we're really gonna be in it.
You come out of this big, giant belly of a ship, and everything just kind of opens up, and you see a foreign country, kind of like an animal just let out of a cage, and you're just kind of looking around, adjusting to your surroundings.
We got to Kuwait City, to this huge tent town where there had been, 100,000 troops at one time. And we're there at this basically deserted tent town, cleaning up their trash. And finally, we crossed the line into Iraq.
You get to this line in the sand. That's the border, the difference between Iraq and Kuwait. And as soon as you cross it, you're in a whole different world. I mean, literally within 2 seconds of crossing that line, I saw little kids with no shoes, no food, literally begging, putting their hands out and gesturing to their mouth, can you guys give us some food? And it broke my heart. I was like, oh my God. And that, if anything, solidified my belief that we were there to do the right thing.
Little bitty kids would come, they would hear us coming, and they would tear out to the road as fast as they could run, hoping we would throw them out some food. So, then I'm thinking, well, definitely it's a good thing we are here. The first place we stopped made Parrish, Alabama look like a metropolis. We just kind of sat out on the hillside that afternoon with the kids, and they were very nice to us. All the kids are so beautiful. They're just, the kids are so beautiful. If you look somebody in the eye, no matter what, you kind of get them. And I took all of these pictures of the kids' eyes. I kneeled in front of 7 Iraqi children, obediently seated on a 2-foot wall made of mud and shit and straw. Pull a bottle of lotion from my pack and gently smooth it onto each grateful face. Massage each tiny hand. Their hands look so small in mine. Each child waits eagerly but patiently for me to finish with the last. This ritual they have come to call magic, where they learn the word I cannot know. The volumes of communication that occurs between our eyes is limitless. The very term language barrier makes me laugh. Eventually, they all leave, save one, a boy of about 10 with eyes the color of olives with flecks of blood red and gold. His eyes are as piercing as a tiger's. When he checks to make sure his buddies have all gone, he opens his mouth to sing to me. The beauty of his song I would not insult by trying to describe it. All of the heads of state with armies at their command cannot wield the power I found in that little boy's song. In a filthy, impoverished, war-torn country, I have found the very seed of all that is beautiful and perfect and right.
In the smallest things, like giving candy to a little kid or giving a man a bottle of water, those tangible things that you can really feel, like you're giving somebody something, you're putting a smile on their face. Those things made me proud.
I really like that idea that not only are we here to, chase down the bad guys and the people that are making their lives miserable, but it's also great to help out the people.
Badra, a tiny town on the outskirts of Al-Qut, is where I met Mehdi, a young boy with a happy if desperate face. He adopts me immediately. Mister. Mehdi is streetwise for his age and works my sympathy for every bit of food and money he can get out of me. Mister, okay. Finally, I say, hey, no more mister. I'm Jeff. Jeff, okay. When he forgets and calls me mister, I just look around the crowd and say, mister, mister, and then shrug my shoulders as if I can't find this mister. He laughs at my joke. It's very important to me that he makes the separation. On the second day when we arrive in town, I just hold my hand 4 or 5 feet from the ground and say, Mehdi, Mehdi. They understand, and soon my small guide appears. We spent the whole afternoon together, him dragging me from one place to the next, always surrounded by hungry children. This is his home, and he's proud of it.
Mehdi and Mehdi's brother, Istar. Yes. And we're here in Muhar, this town?
Badra.
Badra. We're in Badra.
What's your name?
My name is Jeff. What's your name?
Sarwan.
Serwan? Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Asli.
Asli? Okay, check this out. Look at it now. What's it? Now you see all. That's a better idea.
Jeff.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes. Okay, I have to go. I have to go. Yes? You? Okay.
Jeff.
Suddenly, we receive the order and we have to leave. Back inside the driver's compartment of my vehicle, the crowds gather around with my calm helmet and my tinted goggles on. I just pretend I can't hear Mehdi there in the crowd. Jeff, Jeff, Jeff. And eventually I can't resist, so I search the crowd with my eyes. He's there, just below my hatch. One of the other little kids pokes fun at Mehdi by pointing out his tears to me. So I just lift my tinted goggles so he can see my eyes. So we receive the order, and I drive away. I don't even know if I'd left and I was on my way home or where but this Marine came up and said, hey, is your first name Jeff? Because, people only know my last name. I said, yeah, and he goes, there's this kid in Badra. And whenever Marines go to town, he's got Jeff Key written on his arm. And he comes up and he points, he was trying to find me. I later found out that his name means peace, which is a great little nod from the universe.
It's really hard. You want to go over there and you want to help these people because you see them, they're either asking for food or water, but at the same time, you have to be standoffish because you're in a war zone and you're protecting yourself. So that was one issue that we butted head with a lot. He was always like, oh, hey, let me go talk to this guy. And I was like, Key, you can't do that. Stop. I would literally yell at him and, hey, get back over here. And he'd get pissed. He'd be like, man, I'm just gonna go talk to the guy. I'm like, no, you can't. We're in Iraq. You don't know this guy. And he'd be like, oh, Magana, man, you don't know.
Part of the rest of the company joined us today. It's taken forever for the whole company to get here, and part's already punched north. Man, when my buddy Estenzo showed up, I was up on top of the vehicle, and man, I was so happy to see him.
We found ourselves together at this place called Dogtown. It was nicknamed that because there were so many dogs all over the place. We immediately left to go and get some materials and supplies from another position.
We'd roll somewhere for a part or something, and a big dust storm came up. The sandstorms over there are incredible. They can cut you. They'll be so quick and come up so fast.
2 other Marines that was with us were like, screw this, man, I'm going inside. I'll see you guys later. So they went inside the vehicles while we stayed out, and we're like, man, how can you go inside and not experience this crazy-ass sandstorm? We were just kind of screaming at that point. We were just yelling, hoorah, and woohoo. And I was like, you want to say something? And he was like, You can tell. And I was like, say it. Say it. Say what you want to say.
They knew that on some level it had to be rough for me to have to keep this secret, and you know, to never just say something, just freaking say it out loud or whatever. So he got it in his mind that he wanted me to like scream, "I'm a fag," or out there where nobody could hear it, and just like get it out or whatever.
He said that he was gay, and it was just, you know, it was just something that he whispered into the wind, and it took a glide away, and it went to the rest of the world from there. And that's when you kind of like realize that, you know, there's only so much you can do before, you know, finally revealing one's true self.
So much is happening for me, spiritually and emotionally, that I just can't pour it onto the page or onto a camera fast enough. It takes me time to just try to sort it out. It just comes too fast. I could continuously write and still not get it all down.
Lance Corporal Keys, summer vacation. I felt like what was happening to me was profound. It was just like the volume was turned up on life. Everything was so incredibly real.
He would crack us up whenever we had time. Like, "Hey, Key, what's up? Can you read us something?" You know, almost like a story. And he just, I remember, he was writing about like how hot the day had been. And one of the lines, I think it was in his play, he said, "Oh, it feels like the devil, you know, crawled out of hell and farted in my face." It was so hot, and I was like, oh man, it was funny because I can see it.
If the devil turned around, bent over, spread his bright red ass cheeks, and farted in my face, it would take my breath away because it would feel so frigid cold as compared to the way I feel right now. Woo, it is hot. Fucking hot. 127 degrees. Inside my dirty little tent, I rest my head on what I believe was once a white foam pillow I found in the dumpster. If this thing had a pillowcase on it, I'd take it off and burn it. If I saw you on the sidewalk in LA, I would cross the street for fear of catching something. Or at least call the CDC. Or the ASPCA. I think I just saw the motherfucker move. Here it's one of my few comforts. Since I broke my headphones, I've been borrowing Corporal Magana's 3-inch stereo speakers, which is great because I still have my music, but sucks because passersby can hear what I'm listening to. How pathetic. After all I've been through, having to worry about explaining the musical Rent to those who don't want to get it. What are you doing? They're trying to kill...
You have a rat underneath your dude.
I have a rat under my pants?
A big-ass rat, dude.
There you go. Smash with that bitch.
Well, why don't you go and say, well, for number one, why don't you shoot it off into the desert where it belongs?
Hey, why don't you just tell me?
A big ass rat.
I couldn't do it! I couldn't do it!
Don't.
I couldn't do it!
Don't kill it.
I couldn't do it, man! He was right there!
Don't kill him. Adair, don't kill him. Shoot him in the desert. It's bad karma.
You're able to see his eyes.
It's bad karma. He's innocent.
You see me? There it is. Right there, right there. What? Ow! Oh my God! What guts? Holy shit! Hey, put him over there. No. Hey, launch him. Launch him.
The desert feels awesome at night. It's pretty here. Clean. The next day is a cool and pleasant day, and I put out my cigarette on a box marked explosives and make my way to one of the blue porta shitters here at Tent City. On the inside of the porta shitter, the writing on the wall says that Corporal Ballard is gay and will suck your cock for free. Somebody drew an arrow to that entry and wrote, "A nigger fucked your mom." Nice. A 3D drawing of 2 towers, 9/11, remember what they did. The hell is near, but if you only ask, God will help. Fuck all white people, stupid crackers. Jesus died for my sins, and I am definitely a homosexual. I resist the urge to add anything. This is our freaking humble little home. They just had to freak out and hide the porn because the first sergeant came by. The first sergeant would probably like to see that.
Now I lost my position.
And this is the softer stuff.
I know what, you know, well, never mind. Hey, E. You let me know if you come across anything that might be of interest to me.
There were Marines that sensed he was gay and tried to make an issue out of it. Like, oh, he's a fag, he's a queer, you know, he's nothing but a fag. And I'm like, so what? Who cares? He's gay and he's a Marine. Leave him alone. So that was really hard to deal with sometimes.
I stand atop my vehicle in Badr with my weapon at the ready, balancing friendly with guarded. We want the people to know we're here to help, but looking passive is an invitation for trouble. A man in his early 30s passes on the opposite side of the street. He is fit and good-looking in that brooding Middle Eastern sort of way. I follow him with my eyes. So I'm watching my little Iraqi soccer player walk down the street, and he looks back in that way. We smile at my catching him. In a couple of minutes, he's made his way over. Corporal Magana's come back and agrees to watch the vehicle, so I jump off the front and go over to the Iraqi, showing off my best cowboy American Marine swagger. Speak English, dear God, let him speak English. I greet him in Arabic. Salam alaikum. I must have an accent, something makes him laugh. Alaikum salam. You speak English? A little. Yes. I'm Jeff. Abbas, nice to meet you. We grip hands tight and resist letting go just long enough so as not to get busted. We make small talk as much as possible, and I begin to wonder if, I don't know, I want more. I mean, there's no way we could do anything, but I'm desperate for at least a verbal acknowledgement of what we both know. He figures out how. You have wife? Nope, no wife. You? No wife. Then those beautiful brown eyes lit up. You know, I'm a sucker for brown eyes. Why, he flirts, and I just smile. We're making out big time with our words. You're beautiful, he says quietly as his eyes dart around to make sure no one hears. Yeah, you're beautiful too. You can see the electricity in the air between us, and my cami bottom's getting tighter by the second. I think he's having the same problem. You have any pantomime's lip balm? I reach in my pocket and produce my dirty half-used tube. I gotta tell you, I don't think I've ever seen anybody put on lip balm in a sexier way. What do you call, and he kisses the air. What, this? And I make the kissing noise. Yes, kiss. We call it kiss. Kiss, he repeats and hands back the chapstick. No, you keep it. I hold up my hand to refuse it. Kiss, he repeats and pushes it into my palm. I'll be damned. He's giving me a kiss. I smooth the stuff onto my own lips as he watches. And in that instant, my anger at both our stupid culture's ignorance and precluding us from at least openly acknowledging that which is natural to us is diminished. And all that shame and anger are overcome by bliss and pride in us and our people and our everlasting overcoming and our ability to love, to show love no matter what, no matter where. We are everywhere. We are love, and we shall overcome.
When President Bush landed on the ship and said mission accomplished, we were like on the border of Iran, Iraq, providing security. And I heard, you know, the war's over. And I was like, the war's over? What the hell am I doing here?
They started talking about Marines don't feel bad. An important part of this war is going to be the incredible good things we're going to do for the Iraqis. You know, Saddam is gone, but there's going to be this unparalleled humanitarian effort. So we went to the Iranian border. I started looking around for the humanitarian MREs, you know, to hand out. They didn't come. I started, you know, we started field stripping our MREs, and I was giving the kids, you know, our M&Ms.
What?
I started to see this shift of people getting more and more irritated of us being there longer and longer on both sides. They're ready for us to go the hell out of here. Okay, Saddam gone, Saddam bad, good, America good, thank you, go. To watch the people in the towns where we went change frightened me.
In the southern Iraq, a lot of people were very supportive of Americans. You know, Amriki number one, and they would, you know, like they would yell Saddam and like show you their, you know, the bottom of their souls. Later on, when we moved out of Babylon, we went to a base that was farther north. People seem to have gotten a little less friendly as we were driving through towns. Like you would see more of those, you know, 1,000-mile stares. This one kid was running through and he was like, you know, yelling and shaking his hands like, oh, happy to see us there. And his dad actually like grabbed him by the back of his shirt and like pulled him back and smacked him one, you know, basically telling like, you know, what are you doing? And simmer down. And it was kind of amusing, but at the same time, you're like, well, that guy doesn't like us.
We weren't used to that. For the first couple of months, we were used to people liking us. And then we went to people not liking us.
With regard to the locals, some of the Marines behave in ways that make me proud to be American. No matter what the politics that brought us here, there's no doubt in my mind their individual convictions are noble. To see them with the kids just warms my heart. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. I think some of them have heard too many stories of Vietnam when all the kids were strapped with bombs, or maybe they're just disappointed that it looks like we may have gotten here too late to kill. Heard some of them say so. Some of the shit I've heard about the way those detainees are getting treated scares the shit out of me. Not for me, really, but for the mission. The young Iraqi fathers are forced to stand by as weapons are pointed at their children. If anybody even walked in the room with one of my nieces with a loaded gun, I'd lose my mind. Are you fucking kidding me? We're supposed to be here fighting a war on terror. We're recruiting terrorists is what we're doing. I heard one of the Cruels describing his interaction with one of the small kids. I'm all up on the vehicle, yeah? This kid's like, mister, give me candy, give me candy. I'm all holding the Starburst, right? So I go, say please, motherfucker, say please. Say please? For a crumb from a table overflowing? Please for a piece of candy the Marines are sick of, or a scrap of an MRE would probably be trampled underfoot or burned. No wonder so many hate us. I hate us. If I can offset this phenomenon in just a small way by being a mite over-generous or kind or respectful, then the small sacrifice of my being without my cushy Hollywood luxuries for a while is more than worth it. The meagerest Christmas or birthday in the life of the poorest Marine would seem a cornucopia to any of these kids. The contrition of a hungry child is something I do not want or need. I started to watch the way I saw some of the service members treat the Iraqis. I started to hear some of the Marines and soldiers talk about, you know, the Iraqis as if they were not valuable, somehow less than in some whatever way. What was so upsetting to me about, you know, seeing that come from people that were representing the United States, seeing that cruelty, or, you know, in the long time since I came back, hearing other stories of how people respond in that way, I guess the reason it short circuits me so much is that it doesn't fit into my idea about what a Marine is. An Iraqi fort. It could be 200 years old, no one can tell me. I do not like it here. I pray we won't sleep here, but it's beginning to look like we will. The fort's been secured for days, so I stroll through with my M16 and my camera. All of a sudden, I'm a fucking tourist. I feel ridiculous snapping photos, but I can't not. This place turns my stomach. As I stroll through the holding cells in the bowels of the building, there are grates in the floor for the draining blood. And I listen across time to screams of horror and anguish from those once held prisoner here. With each blink, the dark inside of my lids offers flash visions of the life once lived here. Odd shots of boots, uniforms, black mustaches, berets, skinny prisoners, piss, food, a dog, weapons, blood. When I try to write of it or speak of it, I choke on the reality forcing its way out my throat. My heart is shoving it out sideways. My God, I can't think of the shadow of that fucking fort. Why can't we leave this place? Fuck! My pen is having problems, my camera is having problems, I'm having problems. I need to feel the joy. It fuels me to go on. My God, why have you forsaken me? It was there just a moment ago. My writing will save me. Fuck it. I want no more of this. I've seen enough. I want to go home. Destiny then whispers to me simply, fuck, no, there's yet more for you here before you're truly ready.
Anything if I could turn back the hands of time to do what I wanted to do. I'll become a Marine. My God, I was sucked into some romanticized idea about what it was. It was so wrong. Look at this country, it's fucking destroyed now.
I was dead asleep. Very poor choice of words. Hey, Key, get up, we're rolling, dog. Fuck. Every time the obligatory complaining starts before I'm even awake. I start to pull on my boot. Hey, hurry up, Devil Dog. I'm coming. Hey, Devil, you know Marenk over at Motor T? Yeah, what about him? He's dead, bro. Grab your shit, we gotta get the vehicle. To the family and friends of Corporal Douglas Marenko Reyes, I did not think this war could get any more real for me, but now it has. As I drove to the scene, my first thoughts were of you, his loved ones back in the States, and of my own family, whom I love so much. Man is not afforded the opportunity to choose the way and time of his passing. But if he was, what nobler way to enter the next life than in service to those he loves, or to help those he never met. When I arrived at the scene, the first thing I noticed when I turned off my engine was how peaceful it was. The Marines had already made a small cross and placed it at water's edge. It had a sign with his name on it. At the foot of the cross, they placed some of their personal items. A little Bible open to the 23rd Psalms and held there against the wind with stones. A headband soaked with sweat. I wrote a note and had the Marines traveling with me to sign it. Our note said, "No greater love hath mortal man than to lay down his life for a brother." I knelt to pay my respects and left our note there with the other items. The truck that Douglas was driving was carrying bottles of water for the Marines. They were now scattered about the desert floor. I bent over and picked one of them up. It was hot to the touch from the blistering sun. I looked back over at the little cross and realized that the water was for me. So I took off the cap, toasted him, and drank it all down. Under my breath, I thanked him. Gracias por la agua, mi hermano. Semper Fi. We had left Dogtown, which had been our only place we'd ever stayed still since we got to Iraq, and had moved to Al-Hala, which is Babylon. And it was a trip to be there on that place, you know, this word I'd heard from church all my life. You have Saddam's palace up on the hill that's like a recreation of Nebuchadnezzar's palace, way up on the hill, and then an amphitheater there. From the hilltop, you could see the ruins of Babylon. When Baghdad fell and the word got out that Saddam was, you know, had been defeated, they came and stripped anything they could rip out, like any pieces of marble or anything anywhere. If they could get it out of there, they had. And the place was chaos.
The area we were getting ready to set up at had all these giant cement benches, and we wanted to clear them out so we can set up our hooches. And I mean, those things were enormous. They were just so heavy. It took like 8 of us to move one of them. And at one point, like, we're using these tent poles to move them over, and I guess Jeff, he took on a little more than he could carry, and something snapped.
As we moved it, he was feeling pains already. So once we dropped the bench, he was starting to tell me that, he's starting to feel some pinch in his belly.
He's like, hey, what's this thing poking out? And he showed everybody, and everybody had a little poke at it.
It would stick out through my abs, that little piece of my intestines, but you could, you kind of roll it up and shove it back through the hole, and it'd be all right. Although, it make your eyes water. It hurt, it hurt bad enough to make my eyes water. And I think it was Costa said, oh yeah, my cousin died from that, or somebody had said, that it could be dangerous to have that. And I got it checked out, and I said, okay, could I conceivably die of something like this? He goes, if your child gets stuck out on the outside and you can't put that piece of your intestine back through, then you'll die. Your body will become toxic and you'll die. And you should get it sewn up. You could probably have it done in Germany, but they'll probably want to send you on home. Went back and I packed my gear, and I started saying goodbye to these Marines. And they kept my weapon. I hadn't been without that piece of metal, it had been attached to my body all the time. It was the freakiest thing not to have, Judy in my hand. I just felt like at each moment regret. I wish I hadn't done this. I wish I hadn't done this. If I felt like I could have just said, I was just kidding, I was thinking, how can I get out of this? When the helicopter lifted up and we left, it was like this weird, long dream.
He didn't want to not finish the mission. I mean, he'd grown close to these Iraqi people, and he really liked them. He liked their culture, he liked their way of life, and he thought it was very precious. There was a major void when he left me, and there wasn't anyone that I could trust in terms of emotions and talking about things. And I was somewhat depressed about it.
Stuff, maybe somebody else wouldn't listen to, he could always kind of bitch to Jeff about it. And he would, have something, some kind of pick me up.
You can't turn around and say, hey, I'm just not feeling good today, man. I really miss my girl, or I really miss my wife, or I really miss my mom. You couldn't do that. You couldn't do that with any other Marine other than Key. And when he left, it was just like there was a big void. Like, oh, Key's gone, man.
They loaded us up on these planes, on these little cargo net benches down the side, and then they started bringing in these gurneys. And they brought in the first one, and I thought, wow, something big happened to this guy. It was weird. And then another and another, and then they started like hooking them together, and they were 4 deep on both sides with people with very serious war injuries. And in that moment, as they continued to fill this airplane with people who were being injured by a growing resistance to American occupation, it was my first wake-up call that the war was not nearly as over as I thought it was. And the feeling of panic that ran through me, because, then I really knew, what if all my guys get into this shit and I'm freaking on my way to sunny America right now? And, if I could have walked back to Babylon at that point, I would have.
I thought in my naivety that everything would be okay once he got home. But it wasn't. It wasn't at all. There was a sadness in Jeff, just a deep, deep sadness.
His overall health wasn't as good as it was when he left, and that's physically, and then just I think mentally. War is just it's a horrible thing.
I drank coffee and smoked cigarettes almost continuously. And I was not comfortable in one place for very long. I would go from, like leave one coffee house to go to another. And everybody wanted to see me, that had all my friends. And then it was like, I didn't really want to talk about the war. And, so that's what people want to talk about when you come back freshly from one. And I would go, to the internet and try to find news of Marines from different points in my Marine Corps career and just regret that I had left.
When Jeff came back and we met for coffee, I remember walking into the coffee shop, and the first thing I noticed is he was thinner. And the sparkle was different in his eye. It was less, and it was sharper.
When people asked me about the war, I said, well, the thing that I did in Iraq was I read my journals to my fellow Marines, and if you want to know what it was like for me there, I'll read my journals to you. I'll read you a couple of entries from my journals.
It was very moving. I mean, I remember all of us sort of sitting there and trying to keep the tears back there streaming down his face, but also just so beautiful, what he saw and some of the stories that he was telling. But also there was a lot of heartbreak in that story, his heart broke in Iraq.
I was amazed when I got back and people were going, oh yeah, there were no weapons. We didn't know that. I mean, that my guys were still over there looking for them. Saddam Hussein's regime had to be a threat to our national security. That's the only reason you should ever expend the lives of those who have offered to give them freely for their nation. For me to find out when I came back that this was common knowledge, that there were no weapons, and then we hadn't said, well, if not, to hold those people responsible who had lied to us in that moment and get our troops out of there and help the Iraqis. But see, it already had crumbled. We had already we were already fueling the insurgency by all the things, by the way the war was being orchestrated. The more stories I heard about service members who were coming home in such bad shape, my commitment to them for all that they had given me, separate even from what every Marine gets by the privilege, the honor of being called a Marine, but what a smaller group of men had given me in the way of their trust of me and their willingness to fight alongside me and to be invested in my well-being and to be all the things they were for me. The idea that somebody would squander their life was so unacceptable to me. I knew I had to do something. I prayed for an answer, and the answer came, as it always does, almost immediately. And that was to tell the truth, just to start talking and tell my story. Dear sir, this is the most difficult letter I've ever had to write. However, I must be true to the dictates of my own conscience. It breaks my heart to know that to be true to the reasons I joined the Marine Corps in the first place, I must now leave the military.
He knew that they were going to ask him to, step out. He basically told, that don't ask, don't tell. He told, and I loved him for that.
Jeff is more of a hero to me right now than he was when he left.
To Go back into the closet and start the deception all over again almost 20 years later seemed counter to all that I believe is right. However, an intense desire to protect this nation and our people caused me to go along with a policy that seems archaic to any thinking person, just to be allowed to serve.
The fact that he is willing to take a bullet for you is more important than the fact that he chooses to have a relationship with somebody of the same sex. Out there, all that stuff goes out the window. I mean, color of skin, you know, size of your bank account, sexual orientation, it doesn't matter. The fact that everybody is looking out for one another is the bottom line.
On the 6th of June in the year 2000, on the 56th anniversary of D-Day, I stood in a room full of recruits young enough to be my sons, and we raised our right hand and took an oath to defend this nation with our very lives if necessary. I didn't take that oath lightly.
He fits the persona of what a Marine should be, and he made sure that he did things 110% at all times. And because of that, a lot of people looked up to him and admired him.
Here are the reasons I gave. They're more important to me today than when I first walked into that office. Number one, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. There are others, but those are the ones that, when the going got tough in boot camp or later on in Iraq, I'd remind myself of and continue on. It may sound idealistic and naively patriotic to some. If that's the way it must be, so be it. If I am the last man standing, I will fight for what is right with all my strength and until my last breath. I'm a United States Marine. I will die a Marine. There are those who will not call me brother, now that they know who I really am. I'd still stand between them and a bullet. I love the Marine Corps. I understand that my unwillingness to keep my sexuality a secret will now necessitate my separation from the Corps. I'm greatly saddened by this fact, but at the same time, proud to be standing true to those core values so deeply ingrained. Honor, courage, commitment. God bless 4th LAR. God bless my Marine Corps. And God bless America.
Hey, Devil Dog, you're supposed to be standing at attention.
Thank you. you.